It's a cold day today. It's rainy and cold outside, and I just turned the heat up. Gonna go back to work on these two guys and try to get them both done. I'm gonna start on feathers, and I'll show you how to do that. So let's get busy. Well, the first thing I'm gonna do is make a couple of feathers for the gentleman, and I'm gonna show you how I start those. Now, I just put the clay in. And just slowly roll it through. And as you can see, it just comes right through easily. You can make belts and all kinds of stuff out of this, and it's just really handy to have a pasta machine in your studio. I measure out the size of the feather, and this is going to be too thin for a feather, but I'm just doing this primarily to show you what I'm talking about. And I've marked the length of the feather, and after I've straightened out the wire, I lay the wire to be just short of the end of the feather, going down the middle of the feather, and then I just bring this over and bend it right at the length of the feather and just flatten it down on top of the armature. I just cut it here. Now that's really thin for a feather. I mean, narrow for a feather. It would actually be quite a bit wider. I'm going to cut this wire here. Just to get rid of the excess wire. And the purposes of this, say you want to widen the feather, you just take some of this clay and put it on either side of the outer edge of the clay, and then try to keep it even on both sides. You can see back here, you got some problems there, but it's easy to do. You just draw the clay out to the edge, and it fills in the crevice. Now what I'm doing is I'm going from the center out, and you can see the grooves that I'm putting into the feather texture. It gives it the look of a feather. I can hear the rain outside. Okay, now I want to give it some character, like the feather is not a new feather. And so I want to cut out where the feather, the body of the feather is separated, and it just makes it look more like a feather after you get done. Okay, we got a feather. Now I want to make the quill. I make it thick on this side and thinner on this end, because I want the thick part down at the bottom of the feather and the thin part ending up at the top of the feather. Okay, I just roll it over onto the stem and then just roll it back. I rub my finger against my nose. That gets a little natural body oil off your face, and it keeps the clay from sticking to your finger. And since I want several feathers, I want them all the same thickness. I don't want to make them different thicknesses. I just fold the clay over on itself, and I've got 3 feather blanks ready to go. Now if I want this armature on this clay here, what I do is I just take a lighter and I heat the wire, and then using my knife blade I just press the wire down into the clay. It melts into the clay, seals itself into the clay, because it literally melts the clay around it, and then we've got an armature and a feather. Then I just go through the same process again. Okay, I'm not going to show this process for every feather, so I'm just going to go ahead and do these, turn off the camera, and come back. Alright, I made 3 feathers. You can see them here. And what I'm going to do now is try to figure out how I'm going to place these on here now. door opens, it'll look like that. It closes, it'll look like that. From this angle, nobody's going to see anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in this area back here because it doesn't need to really be highly detailed. I'm going to take some softened clay. It's really soft, and I want to make an eagle fluff at the where his head is, and where the feathers come onto the feather, onto the head. And the reason I want to do that is because it covers up the wires, and it's also something they would have had on their feathers would be eagle fluff. Now I'm going to go to work on her. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get her dressed to a point where I want to add some beadwork to the dress. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a comb to make the beads. And I've taken a fine tooth comb and cut off the ends, thick ends, and also cut off the section that starts out to be the wide tooth. I just want the narrow tooth. And I don't want the little thick part on the end of the comb, so I cut that off too. And what I'm doing is I roll off the clay. What I'm doing, and the reason I'm using a comb on this size of a piece is because this would be early Native American. And I'm thinking 1840s, around that period. And so they would have worn pony beads, which tended to be bigger than seed beads. Now, if I was to make seed beads for these, the size of Indian, it would not work doing this. You'd have to make them so thin you couldn't even do it. So you would just indicate beads, you wouldn't actually put beads on it. But because of the age and the period of this sculpture, I can get away with doing the pony beads, which are bigger. And lay it on the rolled out clay, and I'm just going to lightly press down and roll it back and forth. And what that does is it gives a feeling of beads, as you can see. So now I got a string of beads. All right, I'm going to continue doing that, and now that you know how to do it, you can do it. I'm going to go ahead and put the beadwork on, and the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to make a lazy stitch, which would be on this type of dress. So now I'm just laying the beadwork on the raised area, and when you press it on the top and the bottom, it wraps around that raised area and it looks like a lazy stitch. Okay, the beadwork is done on her dress. Now I bought some thumbtacks a while back, and they would put brass tacks or brass discs on their dresses. And so I am going to take these tacks that I've got and just place it right there on the dress. Okay, about a year ago, maybe two, I took a piece of clay that I used to the paint shop and had them take a sample of it and put it in their color matching machine, and they matched the color of my clay to a paint that they mixed up for me. And so now I can paint over the brass tacks, and they look a little bit like the clay. All right, I'm going to make elk teeth now. All right, they're pretty much done, and this is the angle that they'll be facing each other on the, let me just do something here because he's moved on his ball. There we go. This is the angle that they're going to face each other as the door is closed, and when the door is opened, they'll both open out like that. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to sit with Trent tomorrow, and we'll finish up the pieces, and then we'll start the handle of that these will be sitting on the top of. So until then, that's going to be it for today. Have a great night.